How we doing today, Kevin? Happy Tuesday.
What's going on, Garrett?
Not too much. Welcome to another power session. We hope everyone enjoys their time today. And I understand we're going to be doing more of an entry-level dashboard building today.
Yeah, we're gonna get to the fun stuff, how to kind of create your own analytics in the platform.
Sounds good. Well, let's get to it because we got 15 minutes. Well, how do we get there and just kind of kick things off?
Yeah, so the first thing you're gonna want to do is when you log into the platform, go to the analytics. So you're gonna see all the dashboards that you're used to accessing. So these are kind of all the standard ones that we've created. But if you want to actually create your own custom report, what you can do is click Access Environment. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull up this blank dashboard. This is basically kind of your canvas, your workspace to kind of start creating your own dashboard in and of itself. So the first thing you'll kind of notice is there isn't actually any data that comes populated on this. That's kind of what we're going over today is how do you populate data into this canvas, into this workspace. So what you'll see all the way over on the left is this panel where you can add new data. So there's three options here. Add new data, add existing data set, add existing objects. What we're really going to focus on is adding this existing data set. So what we've done at ProNovos is we've gone through and looked at kind of all of the data that we've pulled over from your accounting system. And we've said, what are the common things that people want to report on, right? It's, you're going to be your AR, it's going to be your change orders, your job cost, your billing details. And we've created standard data sets. So you don't have to go through and kind of structure the data. You can basically select one of those pre-populated data sets. So if I wanted to add one of those, what I would do is I would click existing data set. You're going to get to this folder structure here. And what you're going to want to select is the data sets folder. And what you'll see is a list of all of the data sets. So you'll see a lot of the ones like I just mentioned. We have job summary. So this is just going to be your basic info about your jobs, job details. So this is going to actually show like at the date, the transaction, cost class, cost code level, billing details. You have ones around change orders, accounts receivable, AR aging, AP aging. You have income statement, balance sheet, revenue, payroll data sets. So like I said, it's not going to be everything, but the main things that you're typically going to want to report on are going to be here kind of as these standard data sets. There's one other kind of important thing to kind of know about the different types of data sets. What you'll see in all of these data sets here is it says ERPC. And what that means is that's a company level data set. So if I add the job summary, what I'm going to do is I'm going to return all of the job summary data across all of my projects or all of my jobs. If I only want a specific job or project, that's what these project prompt data sets are. So if I was saying, hey, I really just want to build a report that is only ever looking at one project at any given time, that's where I'm going to go ahead and add these project level data sets. And what happens is when you kind of finish your dashboard and you run it, you're going to get this prompt that says, okay, select the project that you want to see data returned on.
Sounds
Um,
like it'll be a lot quicker than running them for company-wide at that point.
Yeah, and that's the big thing to kind of think about if you do get into building these own dashboards. So if you think about it, you can start returning a ton of data when you build one of these dashboards. So let's say you were built a dashboard where you wanted to look at the transaction details across all time on a project. Well, if you look at the project prompt, chances are you probably only have like a few hundred transactions per project. That data is going to return really quickly. If you
Right.
don't use the project prompt though, and you use one of the company level ones, well, now you're returning transactions across all of your projects for however long that you've been populating data in your accounting system. So let's say you've been using the accounting system since 2007, then you're going to get 15 years of project data and transactions, and maybe you're returning hundreds of thousands, if not, millions of records. And that's where it's really going to take it a lot longer to populate the data. So it's something to keep in mind when you're building it. It's like really think about whether you want to actually look at it at the company or the project level, because it's going to have a huge impact in terms of what the performance of the dashboard is.
Perfect. Great to know.
Yeah. All right. Should we add a data set?
Let's get started.
So we'll use just the job summary one as a basic one. So if I want to add it, real simple, just click it, select. It's going to load it. You can see on the left here, now what I have is all of the data that exists in the data set. And you'll see two different types of options here. You'll see these green ones and you'll see these orange ones. So the green ones are what are called attributes. And the attributes are the best way to think of it as like what is the descriptors for the data. So if I'm looking at my job summary, I'm going to have things like what's the start date, what's the job status, who's the project manager, what's the state the project is. So all of these descriptors are basically what make up the attributes. And then the orange ones are the metrics. And very simple metrics are going to be like, what are your numbers, right? So here we're going to see like our job cost, build amount, backlog, budget, contract amount. So you can basically see all of the numerical values related to a given project. So when you start to build your dashboard, what it will do is based on the attributes that you select, it will start to aggregate these different metrics across those attributes. So a real simple example, let's use revised contract amount. If I look at revised contract amount and I add it, actually, I should have done one thing before I did that. We'll leave it. So you'll see here, because I don't have any attributes selected, it's basically showing me my revised contract amount across all projects. Now, if I say, okay, I want to know based on my job status what it is. So I can add job status. So that when I add an attribute, it's now aggregating that revised contract amount across that attribute. So I can say I've got 28 million inactive, 128 million closed, 2 million inactive. And as I continue to add more attributes, so let's add job, you can see it will start to aggregate further and further. So those attributes are basically controlling what level of detail that you're seeing that data. And you can rearrange these, right? So here I've created a hierarchy where I'm looking at job status first and then job. If I wanted to go the other way around, I could switch it and now I'm going to see job first, then my job status, and then the contract amount. So you can kind of rearrange your attributes based on that.
Pretty straightforward. I like that we can just drag and drop everything.
Yeah, really easy. So you just click on things to add it. So this is like obviously a very simple example. Basically, we're only looking at job summary data set. Usually, you're going to want to have multiple data sets in a dashboard. So the way you would do that is if you need additional data sets, you would go up here, click those three little dots next to data sets. You would say add data, select existing data set, and you would select what else you want to add. So let's add change order summary here. And this will be, there's probably a lot of change order data, so this might take a few seconds to load here. Okay, so now that we've loaded our change order data, what you'll start to see is on some of the attributes in both our original job summary data set and in our change order data set, they're showing this little barbell next to them. And what that's basically saying is that that attribute exists in both data sets, and therefore it's linking the two data sets together. And that means that when I report on it, I can see the data for both. So let's say here I've got job, I've got my revised contract amount from my job summary. If I wanted to add my change order contract amount, I could do that because my job exists in both data sets. So when I add change order amount, you'll see that it reports correctly. Now, let's look at a different example where this may not work. So I've got revised contract amount here, change order contract amount. Let's say I want to look at the change order status. Well, you can see here change order status, my attribute in the change order summary data set does not have that barbell next to it. So basically, there's nothing linking it between this data set and my job summary data set. So if I add it here to my report, you're going to see something funky happen with the contract amount. So if I look at a project here, what you'll now see is for all of my change order statuses. So if I look at, I've got 3 different statuses, approved, estimate, rejected. My contract amount is now repeating across those 3 metrics because basically a contract amount doesn't have a change order status. So it doesn't know what to do. So it's basically just repeating that value for each. So that's become a really critical thing when you're starting to build these dashboards and using these data sets. It's really important to pay attention to the attributes that the 2 data sets share. because it's basically controlling what level of detail that data can be reported on. And if you try reporting the data at a level that data set doesn't support, then you're going to see the numbers start to repeat. So 9 times out of 10, when we have a client reach out to us that says, hey, we're having issues where we're seeing funky numbers for this data set or for this report, it's almost always because they're kind of combining metrics from different data sets that don't line up that way. So paying attention to this is really important if you start kind of building your own dashboards.
Sounds good. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, I can see where
Yeah.
that turned into a mess early on.
Yes, yeah. And then the other thing you'll kind of see here is as I'm kind of adding the different attributes and metrics, it's adding it to this visualization here. So you'll see just about every visualization is some combination of attributes and metrics. So you kind of need them both. And that's something you'll see too is if you'll create a data set that only has attributes, it sometimes returns kind of some funky things because you need at least one metric to start to aggregate the data upon. So that's another thing just to kind of bear in mind. But it is really, I would encourage everyone on this power session to go in here, play around with it, select the different data sets, see what's out there, see the different attributes, metrics, try and add a couple different ones to see how they link together. There's a lot of good, really information out there that you can use to start building your own reports. So I know today we're kind of really just covering the foundations of it. This is not probably the exciting part of like building your own visualizations, creating different metrics and calculations. We're going to cover that next month in kind of our phase 2. But we wanted to make sure we took some time today just to talk about like, hey, what are the building blocks, the data sets of how you get them created? Because if you don't have a good handle on this, what are attributes? What are metrics? What's a project level data set versus a company level data set? How do they link together? Chances are when you try and do some of those more complex things like building the visuals and the calculations, things are going to kind of not work the way you expect them to. So definitely it's really important to get these basic building blocks down first.
Yeah, it looks like it can be as simple as or as in-depth as you want at this point, depending on how much time you have to invest in it. Well, let's say I want to kind of continue this later. How do we save this and get back to it?
Yeah. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to go to File, Save As. And what you'll see is it will default to My Reports. So you can save it to My Reports. You'll be like, hey, this is just something I'm playing around with. I don't want anyone else to see it yet. You can save it here. But what I would suggest you to do is when you click on this folder here, you're going to see a folder that has your company name on it. So if I select this here, I can say, all right, let's call this example. Actually, let's call this Power Session 1. And I'm going to save it. And then I'll say run newly saved dashboard. And then what that does is because I'm saving it to my company folder, when I go back to my analytics page here and I go to category and I go to custom, what I can do is I can publish it. And what we'll see is the list of all of the reports that are saved in that custom company folder. So I can see Power Session 1, and then here I can publish it. I can decide who has access to it. Is it just an administrator tool? Do I want executives, project managers, superintendents to see it? And then I can save it. And then when I do that, it will be kind of added to the bottom here. So that's kind of that last step of like, okay, I've created this dashboard. I now want to share it with my team. I want us to start using it to get the insights out of it. You can basically add it that way. So then you kind of, whenever you go to analytics, you can see those custom dashboards you're creating.
I like it, especially if I create something that may have, sensitive information like payroll, and I can limit it to just, execs, admins, things of that nature. So
Yep,
it's good to know.
exactly. Yep.
Well, I know we have a minute left. Anything else you want to touch on? And if not, we can open up to questions and call it a day.
Yeah, no, I think we've covered the basics of it. Like I said, we'll get really more into the nitty gritty of how do you create bar charts, spring charts, how do I create my own custom calculations in round 2. But between now and then, I would definitely encourage everyone to try and go in here, access the custom environment, and practice kind of adding data sets and getting familiar with the structure of it.
Yeah, it sounds good. Well, so hang on for another minute here, and if not, we'll see you back on the 18th of February, and hopefully you find some time between here and then to spend time in there.
Very cool.
Yeah, you're welcome, fellas. Thanks for joining. Looks like we had a question there, Kevin.
Yeah, so you can manually link attributes to another data set. So if you click on an attribute or right click, I'll say, you'll see this option to link to other data set, and then it will allow you to select an attribute from the other data set there. So it is something you can do. I would say buyer beware if you do this, because just because you create a link between two data sets does not mean the data supports it. So that's something you just need to be watching out for. And then when you do create that link, I'm going to create a bad link here, but let's see if it lets me do it. You can then right click on it. Oh, I'm sorry, actually it's up here. If I go to join behavior, you can select whether you want a outer join or inner join on those data sets. So that is a very advanced setting. So again, if you have specific questions, I would encourage reaching out to Garrett, or if you're still in implementation, Denver, and we can kind of walk you through that, because that's going to kind of change the behavior in terms of how the data is aggregated.
Cool. Well, it looks like we don't have anything else. So thanks everyone for your time today. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you on the 18th. Yeah, thanks, Lou. Enjoy.
Thanks, Garrett.
Yep.